got some guys here with us that's going to have a conversation about their various departments, about what they do, how they do what they do, and kind of how we're going to end the year, as we always do, strong, and how we're going to start the year 2026, what that looks like. And I guess we'll start with our panel. This is the only and one time that where I bring in the conversation. That doesn't mean you can ask questions outside of what's up here. You don't have to specifically stick to what's going on here. If you got a question, we're going to do our best at answering your question. Again, you'll get the truth. Just understand the answer will be the truth, not whether you like it or not whether it fits within the realm of what you want, or how that looks, but the truth of the matter is that's what you'll get, and my panel here behind me will do just the same. On that note, let me start, I guess, my right to left, and allow you guys to introduce yourselves, kind of talk a little bit about your department, who you are, kind of why you're here, and all that kind of good stuff. But we need the 2-minute spiel. So Suleiman has got the gavel if you go beyond 2 minutes. But no, on that note, but if you would please introduce yourself so everybody will kind of know kind of who you are, where you're representing, and kind of what department that you're representing, okay? Okay. Starting.
All right, can everybody hear me? Yeah. All right, my name is Kim Smallwood. I'm the program manager at the Fairburn Road Senior Center. We serve all residents of Douglas County who are 60 and older. We do the congregate and the home delivered meal program, as well as homemaker services and transportation, non-emergency medical transportation, and other programs that I'll let Sherry, my counterpart, introduce. We serve about 500 citizens in Douglas County from various programs. And anybody want any more information, I can be more specific.
Great job, Kim.
Hi, I'm Sherry Griffith. I am the supervisor of most of the programs that we do have, the homemaker services, the Meals on Wheels, also our newest programs, the kinship, the respite, the home mod, the senior home modification program, as well as material aid and assistive technology. I also supervise the case managers who go out and enroll the seniors into the various programs. Also the homemakers, we have 3 homemakers that go out and do light housekeeping for our seniors in the community who are enrolled in that specific program. And that's about it.
Thank you, Sherry. We get through. Let's get through the entire panel, but yes, let's get through the entire panel. Then we're gonna start popping off with the questions. Okay, hang tight. All righty.
I'm Amanda Strickland with Douglas County 911. I'm the deputy director. We are the PSAP for the county, so we take every 911 call for the whole county. We dispatch for the city of Douglasville and fire and EMS, and then we can transfer to the sheriff's department for anything in their jurisdiction.
Thank you, Amanda.
Good morning. My name is Chad Griffin, Director of Douglas County Parks and Rec. We bring the fun to the county. So we oversee 49 athletic fields, 2,000 miles, or 2,000 acres of parkland, 20 miles of trails. So, like I said, we bring the fun to Douglas County.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Suleiman Rana. I'm the Managing Director of our Transportation Services Division. This division is comprised of 3 departments: Public Works, that's responsible for landfill and fleet county cars that we manage; Connect Douglas, which is our transit agency; and my core department is Department of Transportation, that manages and maintains roadways, signals, and signs.
Good morning. Obviously, I'm not Sheriff Tim Pounds, but I am Lieutenant Colonel Tavarius Pounds. Work at the Sheriff's Office. We do, of course, everybody knows what we do. We enforce the laws. We protect the courts. There's a plethora of things we do. We have a community outreach program with our Scope Division. So thank you for having us, and hopefully I can answer some questions for you today.
Oh, we got some tough ones for you.
I'm sure you do.
Go ahead, Greg.
Hi, my name is Greg Baker. I'm the Tax Commissioner of Douglas County. I'm responsible for collecting all the taxes in Douglas County distributing them to the county, the school board, each of the cities, 3 cities that we distribute to. We just took back over the homestead exemption program where you get your homestead exemptions. We do put out advertisements that you need to come in if you haven't, make sure you get your homestead exemptions. That does help lower your taxes. We apply the senior citizens discount so that you get reduced taxes on your tax bill. And don't forget, we're not responsible for raising taxes. We're only responsible for collecting taxes. And our collection rate, just so it'll keep your taxes low, has been about 99.8% each year. We plan to keep it that way. Our goal is to keep your taxes low, but your goal should be make sure you look at your tax bill and make sure you got all the exemptions you need on that tax bill. And if you have any questions for me, I'll be here.
Thank you, Tax Commissioner. Allison.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Allison Duncan. I'm the Planning and Zoning Manager for Douglas County. In our long-range planning capacity, we are keeping an eye on future trends, looking at growth and forecasting for how Douglas County will grow in an orderly fashion over the years. In our zoning capacity, we are helping to facilitate the day-to-day decision-making when it comes to development and growth and permitting management and things of that nature in Douglas County. And I look forward to your questions.
You got it. Well, thank you. Well, first, let's give them all a nice hand for just at least coming out and being a part of this whole conversation. So, all righty then. So this is good. This is kind of how it kind of unfolds. So I think I've already had an individual that wanted to ask a question before we went through the panel. So you're more than welcome to really stand up, state your name and all that good stuff and ask your question, and we'll start like that. And it's just that simple, guys. There's no true, real format. We're just here to kind of have a conversation with you about your questions. Go right ahead.
All right, thank you. My name is Wanda Bayless Willis, and I do have a question for Kim and Sherry. Do you need to be in a certain income bracket to receive the benefits?
No,
for
ma'am.
senior?
No.
You don't?
There's no income requirement. There is a cost share, but we don't encourage or we don't force any seniors that is receiving the services to pay any cost share. We don't look at income at all.
So let's answer that question though. So is it about your age or is it about your income? Is it? I'm just trying to help. I don't know if that's kind of part of your question.
Well, no, it's usually these kind of services, you need to be in a particular income
bracket.
So that's why I was asking.
Right.
You know, because a lot of things you were saying, I think I could participate in. So I just wanted to know if there was an income gap or anything like that.
No.
So I hear you saying no.
No.
Right.
Okay.
And there's not for the congregate or home delivered meal program or transportation either. The only program that we have that there would be any type of income would be the commodity supplemental food program. And that's not based on us, it's based on the Atlanta Community Food Bank.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you also stay right there? Don't go away. Can you also talk more about the various programs within the program of the senior citizen services, like the voucher programs and all that kind of good stuff that's being offered to seniors, and they spend a certain amount of money to get a certain amount of vouchers and so on? I don't mean to catch anybody off guard.
The farmer's market?
Well, the only voucher program would
Okay.
be for the respite care for Sherry,
Okay.
what she does through it's like a respite care program where the family can have time to themselves, and it's so much of a voucher for each one. But other than that, we don't have a voucher program.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Go
One
ahead.
more question.
Sure.
And this is for Greg Baker. You were talking about the homestead exemption. Do we need to reapply for that, or if we already have it, does it continue? I'm not sure about that. You said
You don't have to reapply. If you already have it, it'll stay on board unless you change your deed or you sell your property. Now, sometimes when you change your deed, we have found that the assessor's office upstairs sometimes drops that homestead exemption for some reason. We're trying to get that corrected. That's not my department. We catch a lot of them. So I would always caution you, if you do any changes to your deed, follow up and make sure that homestead exemption is still on your taxes.
Okay, thank you.
But let me add to that though. So Greg, you talk about what do you mean by changing your homestead? Not changing your homestead, changing your deed.
Well, let's say you
Okay.
add someone to your deed or take someone off.
Right.
Basic case is one of your spouses died and you're taking that spouse off the deed. A lot of times they don't have a joint homestead on there. Usually a lot of people put their husbands on there and then he passes away, but you don't have that homestead exemption. So what they'll do is they'll take that homestead exemption off so it doesn't automatically roll over. So you want to make sure you check that.
What if by chance someone going through a trust and wanted to kind of move their property or deed into a trust, will the homestead drop off? And I don't know how many you guys are dealing with trust and all that kind of good stuff though, but there's always a lot of unique things that happen with you and your deeds. So what happens in that case in point?
It could drop off. That's why I say any change to your deed, the assessor's office sometime will drop those off because they don't know. If the husband's on there and you put it into a trust, that's a change to a deed. So a lot of times they'll drop that off. So that's why I say make sure you check that if you do any change to your deed.
Yeah, because I've noticed, especially, and Greg, I don't know if you could speak to the January 1st House bill that changed some kind of state law that now you e-file when it comes to your when it comes to your deed and all that good stuff, making any changes and all that good stuff. And they really did this, and I'll let you kind of better explain this because of the fraud that's going along with when it comes to your deeds. So now you got to e-file. That's a whole big another animal that's confusing because I just recently had to do it, and with the assistant of him and his assistant to help me get through it. So I can imagine when you guys start going through that, it's going to be just as difficult, if not confusing. But if you'll speak to that, if you would.
Well, yeah, the legislator changed. As you know, a lot of people were stealing people's deeds and getting loans on it. So what they did is they changed the law that you can no longer just walk into the clerk's office and change your deed. So now you have to e-file it, which is through the computer system. It runs check on who you are. And when that deed is changed, it a lot of times send you information that deed has changed. So it gives it more security for you. Nobody can just walk in and change your deed because you got to put a lot of information into that system to make sure it's you. And it has to cut back on some of that fraud. Nothing will cut back on all fraud because thieves are very slick, as we know. But it has cut back on a lot of people's titles getting stolen from.
Right, and I just recently had to go through it, and that's why I know it's a very unique moment of trying to make a change on your deed, add someone, take someone off your deed, go through a trust, and so on. And wow, it's a wow moment. I'll just say that much. Thank you, Mr. Baker. All righty, any other questions? Just raise your hand, and we've got, okay, there we go.
I'm Montez Hill. My question is for Ms. Sherry and Kim. I want to know how the Meals on Wheels actually work.
Okay.
How the Meals on Wheels actually work, well, it starts by a citizen calling senior services, and we refer them to the screening line. Once they're screened, they're placed on our wait list. Once their name comes up, then I assign them to a case manager. A case manager then goes out, assess them, enroll them on the Meals on Wheels. We place them on the appropriate route, and then this is where the collaboration between Kim and I comes in, where she provides the meals and we collaborate with the routes, and then they're on the Meals on Wheels and receiving services.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? You guys are being very generous and modest this morning. Okay, here we go now. Let's. Okay, she says she don't need no mic, but okay.
My name is Andrea, and I have a question for Pound. What is the community outreach program?
So it's the SCOPE unit that the sheriff created when he first came in office. It stands for the Sheriff's Community Outreach Program and Education. So they go to the schools, pass out ice cream. We got a big grill. We got a big music truck. We do events with the city police department. We go to retirement homes. We go all over the community, just trying to make us bridge that gap between the community and law enforcement.
And moving forward, if you ask a question, please use the microphone because this is a live recording. So in order for them to pick up the question, you got to use the microphone, all right?
Thank you, Daryl. Okay, Amanda, Amy, Amy.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Couple of questions for E911 and then Sheriff's Department. So when we, and I'm in District 2, but I love District 1. My office was in District 1, and I love being involved in the community, as y'all
But
know.
let's say now, these meetings are not strictly designed and created and done just for District 1. It's about Douglas County. Okay,
That's
thank
why I
you.
love you.
Yes.
All right, so my concern is when I place a call in, 911, and I may have a concern and they'll immediately put me to the city of Douglasville versus the Sheriff's Department. And I can say multiple times, I don't need the city of Douglasville, I need the Sheriff's Department, and they'll still send a city police department. So my concern is, how do we finally get that worked out? Because for someone who pays city taxes, I'm now getting more and more disgruntled with the city, because if that's the only services I'm really receiving and paying taxes, then I find it just a waste of my money. But if I'm paying county taxes, and that's who's supposed to take care of the services, how do we ensure that the proper people are being sent to the proper location when needed?
Can I ask you a question just to clarify? Give me an example of when you would call that you would need.
I'm glad you asked. So I live on Riverside Parkway.
Okay.
And we have the trucks.
Yes.
Who is causing severe damage to our roads, right? And so when I look at the tax collections of that road, and I look at who has been responsible for paying those city taxes for the last decade on that road and who had not, the financial burden had been on the residents that live in the tributary to Manchester.
So it wasn't an in progress, it's an ongoing.
Oh, it's still ongoing. We've even
Right.
been on the news about this. So
Okay.
when you call, you'll have the city police officers that'll scan and issue tickets for those with moving violations, but not for those that are in parking violations, which you have signs. This county has paid for multiple signs up and down that road that says no trucks over 6 wheels. But look at how many warehouses we have, right? Look at all the construction that we have. So that's a matter of damage, right? On top of that, besides just saying no trucks, it also says no parking. There is countless signs. But you also have just as many no parking signs. You also have signs that says in the county, in the city, out of the city, in the city, out of the city. So you don't know.
I was about to say, Riverside is a choppy area with jurisdiction, so.
But that needs to be taken care of. There
I
are
agree.
intergovernmental agreements, and people need to understand who is responsible, because if emergency happens, like we've had a gentleman, not even a gentleman, but there was a criminal that was picked up that unfortunately raping women in tractor trailers, and these are residential areas. Now, Douglas County, wherever the camera is a great place to live, okay? But these are those instances that we want to make sure we're proactive and not reactive and having that terrorize our community. So if I'm calling 911, specifically even just last week, and it's like, hey, no, I call the city police. I don't need the city police. I need the county. I need the sheriff's department to come hold it accountable. So I need to know that there is a surety that those calls do come to the right location, and then I need a surety that the sheriff's department is going to actually do it, you know?
So let me add. Okay, so Amanda, can we first talk about, because that Riverside is kind of city, county, and I don't know, Suleiman, you can probably jump in as to kind of how it goes, but how do we assure, to include the sheriff, so how do we ensure that, like she stated, that when that call is made, how do you guys route that to make sure that, because you're right, I'm in the city, but again, but you pay city and county taxes, by the way, because you're double taxing the city. Because it's not based off of who and how you pay taxes. It's based off, your calls are based off the call and the situation, correct?
Right.
Okay, so I don't know can you address that, but how would you, or how your department?
So something that is great news that it's going to take us a minute because we have to work with GIS in the whole state. We're going to Next Gen 911, so that's already been approved. We're working towards that. I'm sorry, but it'll take some time, but that will correct the choppy jurisdictions because it's going to have Next Gen is GIS based. So when someone calls 911, if it's hitting off those coordinates, and even if you're right at a county line, it will go to the correct PSAP. So that will help with all the choppy jurisdictions because Thornton Road's that way too with city and county. So that's one thing to look forward to. But another thing is when you call with your address or cross streets, GIS is built into our computer-aided dispatch, so it automatically prompts whose jurisdiction that is. So on Riverside, like in the area of Keehee is the city, but right 100 feet, a couple hundred feet down is the county. So it just depends on where it hits. However, I assure you that even if we send a city officer, because they're right there, if you tell them you would like the county as well, they need to go ahead and transfer you to the county dispatch as well, so you can hit it on both ends.
So how's that determined though? Is it that determined by her and that call, or is that determined by you and your routing? Who decides on who comes and goes, whether it's city or county? I'm assuming, I don't mean to take over your question.
Nope,
but,
you're good.
Okay.
That's a very valid question.
Yeah.
Because even what I hear is, oh, do you want the officer to come or do you want them to call you? And then you won't even get a return phone call.
Got it.
I don't want to be that person that is constantly calling 100 times because, again, it's a safety hazard. You know, it's not just a safety hazard just because of the fear of rape or an accident. But yeah, with an accident, you have trucks that park facing the opposite direction and that just pull off into traffic. It is dark in that small area. As much money as we spent to have lighting up and down that road, it is very dark. And now we've just gotten 1,600 new apartments. That's even more cars. And we have people that walk down that road. I don't know if people really understand that, but there are people that walk to that do use those Connect Douglas stops.
Yeah.
And that is my biggest concern because I'm riding, you still have animals that are going across the streets, you know, I wanna make sure that my tax dollars are being valued
Right.
and adhered to.
Well, I'll say your tax dollars are being valued, yes.
Absolutely.
But I'll also, I don't know, the sheriff department want to kind of get into that conversation, or kind of what are you guys on that end doing when you see those cars or trucks or whatever illegally parked or illegally bound? I mean, I don't know, you tell me.
So, as she was saying, we are working together to get under that next gen system so that it can be dispatched to the right place. However, we can't do everything, and I'm not making excuses. We're 30 people short, probably more than 30 people short. We're losing people at an alarming rate because they want to go do easier work
And get paid more.
and get paid more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the problem that we're facing. So, and if you want to call straight in to the sheriff's office, there is a number you can call straight into our dispatch, and I can give you that number if you want that too.
Can you share that? Or
Sure,
okay.
sure. That number is, whenever you're ready, Ms. McCoy, 770-949-5656. That goes straight to our dispatch.
Can I, 1 second. If it's an in-progress emergency, like life-threatening, please do not call that number. Call 911.
Absolutely.
Right.
Agreed.
But for something such as that,
Right.
yes, you can call our dispatch.
And hopefully that'll get directly to the right individual. However, Riverside being a city, county, and it just depends upon where you're standing, that gets a little trickier because the city is involved. But these guys, you guys work well with the city and the county and everybody else, so there's a good thing to that. So I think we do well, whether it's a mutual agreement, MOU, or it's just common sense. that we got to work together, period. So,
Right. I mean, I wouldn't expect you to sit behind a tree or a bush and wait to see who's coming back to the vehicle that has been parked there, right? But a lot of those vehicles, they're sitting still in the cab, right? But if they're not, then it's just like when you go onto private property and you have, hey, here's the towing sign. If you've got a boot on your car, because I get it's very, very expensive to tow these trucks. But even just applying a simple boot, right? I mean, they need to actually know that somebody's there to enforce it. That's my biggest concern. And a lot of the residents feel that same way. You know, I may just be a little bit more vocal, but I mean, something really does need to be done because it's very dark around there.
okay, okay. And I know, Suleiman, you want to add to that lighting situation? Okay, all right.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy, for the question. I think where DOT stands on this matter, it's very clear. Riverside and Chapel Hill are two roads where we have the most amount of crossover with the city. But these two roads are under an SDS agreement between the county and the city. So county has the responsibility to maintain both of these roads in totality. So even in city limits where you see issues, they are reported directly to the county, and sometimes people are confused about the jurisdictions. They go to the city, but they're eventually routed to us. So we are responsible, and we're also aware of the trucking issue, the parking, and we've gone through the road corridor and placed all appropriate signage so our law enforcement partners can enforce it when they see infractions. So we continue to keep an eye, and then Riverside has also seen an increasing number of maintenance calls. So we have a reoccurring schedule for us to go out there, repair any damage we see on a regular basis. And of course, long term, we're also considering paving that road as funding becomes available.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions?
Yes, we have a question here.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay.
Hey, name's Frank Fallon. I actually represent a landowner off Lee Road, kind of Sweetwater connector in Lee Road. And question is for Suleiman, just curious the status of the DOT expansion of Lee Road on the north side of I-20. Right. The reason for that is we took this property through rezoning, we're denied, and I think part of the concern is some of the condemnation that's going to be taking place at that property. And so we're kind of working with our civil engineer and just trying to figure out with DOT the best way to accommodate that condemnation in the future.
Sure. Thanks for that question. Lee Road is our ongoing design project that is currently going through its PE phase. We're scheduled to begin right-of-way acquisitions in 2027. Now, 2027 in state's fiscal year starts July of 2026. So depending on when that design is finalized, we would be ready with our right-of-way acquisitions. Now, I would note that we hope that we have as minimal, if any, condemnations. We hope to settle with all of the property owners and compensate them the fair market values and acquire that way. In terms of your development, I think I know the parcel that we're referring to. I would like to state that, you know, the road project would not deter anything that you may have planned. We would coordinate with you to better plan so our road goes in as planned and your development can accommodate to those conditions. But we are not in a position to say you cannot develop this because there's a road coming. In the past, I know there were some denials, but we were able to work out, as far as DOT is concerned, workable solutions. And if there are any changed plans or if you plan to come back again, we would have the same conditions, but DOT does not deny developments. That's a decision by planning and zoning and then the board.
Right. I was just more concerned about the status of the project, right?
Okay.
And I think I have a question for Allison. I don't know if this falls under your department, but is there a tree save or a conservation easement program that the county has? Because we went in at a larger footprint. We're thinking about reducing the size. We probably will reduce the size of the overall project and leave a portion of the property on the north side where DOT plans to cross along the northern property boundary and leave that area as a tree save area. I don't know if there's a formal program for conservation or tree save.
So there are requirements under the Unified Development Code for the number of trees that need to be left on a property when it's developed. That is not administered through planning and zoning. It's through our engineering department, and I can give you the contact for the county engineer and arborist if you're not familiar with that program.
Okay. But outside of just like the ordinances, there's no formal program that we can put, you know, a conservation easement in place on a portion of the property through the county, or is that just...
So under, again, in the Unified Development Code, there is a section that governs what we call primary and secondary conservation areas. In regard to conservation easement, Typically, easements are going to be held by the third party, a nonprofit or something similar, and we do have a fair amount of land under conservation easement, in Douglas County. If your question is, will the county hold the easement? It's not been my experience. I don't want to say that there is no instance where the county holds the easement because I'm not that well versed in that. But typically speaking, if a property is subject to a conservation easement, it is a nonprofit third party that is the holder of that easement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
We have another question.
Sure. This is their meeting. I'm just here facilitating.
So I'd like to know, what is the policy on data centers?
Okay.
Are there any that are proposed or coming along in Douglas County? Now, I'm not sure on Bright Star, there's what's happening there. Is that county or is that city?
Meaning the data center?
There's a big construction going there on Bright Star. Looks like they're going to put up a data center or something. It's just all the trees have been removed.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, a couple of things. So Bright Star is, again, one of those areas that is both city and county. There is a project, if you can give me a little bit more specific
I
location.
think it's close to Highway 5.
Highway 5, there's a...
Where you go down the connector, I guess that's what it's called.
So let me try to
Okay.
answer it this way, because again, I know there was a big residential project under consideration that sounds like it's more in that area. We do have a project that was approved for a mix of residential houses, so single-family detached and attached, that is a senior-only age-restricted community. But that would be a property that would back up to I-20. Is it in that area, or is it kind of closer to Highway 5, like you're going down to Bright Star connector?
Yeah, closer to the highway. When you come down Bright Star,
Okay.
like you had that huge warehouse there that has windows or whatever.
Sure.
And then you come past that, there's a big development that's going. I don't know what's going on.
That sounds like it's more in the city.
That's in the city.
Mhm,
Okay.
Yeah, so I
got
wouldn't
it.
have knowledge of that project specifically. I'm kind of aware at a high level of what's going on in that area, but I don't know of anything specific in that area.
All right, thank you.
But can you speak to the data center side of things? And I know that's not for everybody, but can you speak to the data center side of that?
Sure. So in regard to the data centers, we mostly take them on a case-by-case basis. We have one more that will be on a January zoning agenda coming up. But after that, I would have to say that I have not been getting inquiries at the same rate about data centers, at least for the county. So again, I can't speak for the city.
Right.
But generally speaking, we do see trends in development, right? So maybe if I was sitting up here 2 or 3 years ago, it would have been logistics space, right? As far as the eye can see, we were getting request after request after request for logistics space. We probably overbuilt that a little bit. And by the last estimate, we have about 2 million square feet of vacant logistics space, never been occupied, right? So built out of the ground, never been occupied in Douglas County by our assessment of CoStar data, which is a market aggregator data. So I think we've been keeping a very close eye on data centers, largely for the same reason. In areas where we plan for data centers, which are mostly at least, again, in the county, not speaking for the city, but in the county, it's along that Thornton Road, Rockhouse Road corridor. So those are areas where generally the staff has been favorable of seeing the data centers come in because the infrastructure was put in place, many years ago. Those processes were started to put the infrastructure in place that could support a greater intensity of development. In areas where we have had requests for data centers, because again, that trend right now, is looking speculatively about where they can get capacity in proximity to power availability, and that doesn't necessarily consider what the community preference is in regard to our long-range comprehensive plans. So in areas where we've had data centers come through, we've tried to make sure that we put conditions in place to properly address, what we feel will be, the impacts to our ability to deliver services. So usually that's fire, public safety, DOT, water and sewer delivery. Right. So we've worked very closely with those departments to get their impact statements, and where we could condition that, we have tried to make those conditions appropriate. In instances where we did not feel it was appropriate, as many of y'all know, the staff will recommend denial of something that we don't think is appropriate, for our long-range plan.
Thank you. I have one more question. This
Sure,
is
yeah.
about the museum.
Okay. But let me stay on the data center though. So Allison, and we'll get to the museum though. But talk more too also about the 90-day moratorium that we went through and going through that process, because I don't know if I'm answering your question, because I think there's something else within that question that you want to know about data center, not just the placement, but kind of what we're doing as a county and as a board, I'm assuming. So I want her to kind of dig in a little bit more, kind of what we've been doing, trying to not offset it, but try to get a better understanding and get our arms around when it comes to data centers.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, for most of 2025, this has been a big topic of discussion here in Douglas County, as it has been in many jurisdictions. The Board of Commissioners put a moratorium in place in 2025. It ultimately extended for about 6 months. During that time, they asked the staff to review and make recommendations about kind of what we saw all of a sudden was this big trend that had potential for big impacts, not only on the ground, but long-ranging impacts, you know, in terms of power consumption, water consumption, impact to utility bills, and things of that nature. So it was a bit of a two-part analysis. The first part, we returned a series of recommendations, you know, to the Board of Commissioners. We worked with, you know, not just our partners here in Douglas County, but a number of the industries that were coming here proposing data centers. We used data from the Atlanta Regional Commission and some of our peers elsewhere in the U.S. to see how they had been approaching this issue. We returned a recommendations report to the commissioners. Again, that's all public record. If anybody would like a copy of that and they can't find it on our website, I'm happy to share that. And then based on that, we have been working through some recommendations coming out of that. So first and foremost, we did some code changes to make it a little bit greater degree of scrutiny on how the data centers are moving through. For example, we looked at our partners up in Virginia, right? So Loudoun County, Virginia is a peer community that has had a greater experience with data centers than we did. The feedback, you know, from that community is that they made data centers a use by right, you know, basically everywhere, right? So they could just come in, get the permit, and they were in business. They have since changed their rules and have speculated that part of the change in rules that have slowed down that pipeline a little bit is why they're pushing kind of out of the Northern Virginia area into other communities such as Georgia, because Douglas County is not alone in kind of the influx that they have seen. Oftentimes data centers were water cooled, so we work very closely with our partners at the Water and Sewer Authority to understand the impact of facilities. There is a new water tower that is going to have to be constructed to support the growth of the data centers on the eastern side of the county. And so as water has become increasingly scarce for water cooling of data centers, they have looked more for where they can get power. So in addition to the moratorium and the study that we have done looking at other jurisdictions, we've been working very closely with Georgia Power and Southern Company to understand their regulations. I would say probably about 3 months ago now, they published their new large load customer requirements. So for as much as I would like to say that it was the brilliance of our, you know, staff work and our moratorium that has slowed that pipeline of data centers, I would have to say I think a lot of it's timed with what Georgia Power is now requiring for end users who want to use electricity for data center development. I think that that has really kind of slowed that pipeline insofar as only you know, serious end users are able to meet the financial contributions
right, and
to keep those
that's
applications
from the state, though. The state
forward.
has kind of injected themselves into this whole operation when it comes to data centers, when it comes to that front, the upfront funds that they'll need to kind of process that. So that's not that. The goal is not what I call to slow it down. The goal is to try to get a better understanding as to locations and what works best and how does the power and the water and sewer and all that kind of all come into play as to how it works. So it won't affect us as a community. So it won't affect us as a residential, you know, because the myth is that if they come in, the data center, if they're approved, that is going to take some of our water, it's going to take some of our power, and then we've got to pay higher rates and so on and so forth. Now, that's more of a myth because I don't think that could happen, and I don't know, I mean, this is just speaking from my perspective. That's not what it's all about because they'll pay their rate, they'll pay their cost to kind of do this because now the state is requiring some upfront dollars and cents, and it's a nice substantial number to make sure that you really want to come here and do that on top of not getting here and getting an approval of a data center, but the end user is not you and it's somebody else that you're now trying to come back and ask or request that you get an abatement of some sort. So it's a lot of moving parts, but I think staff, the Board of Commissioners and all of us are trying to do our due diligence as to how this looks and what it looks like and what it could be. Not just to stop it, but I'm a firm believer in I can say no. I like the project, I like the location, I believe in where it's going, and I believe that it could be great for the county. That's a yes. But if not, then the answer is a no. I was the one against the moratorium and all that good stuff because I felt like just tell them no. Just say what you think is best for the community in Douglas County, period. But we went through the moratorium twice, and we did, and that's okay. That's fine. Now, on to your next question, I guess. I don't want to.
No, that's about the museum.
Okay, the museum.
There's a lot of, okay.
Question from the audience regarding that. Allison, you mentioned a meeting, an upcoming meeting in January. Can you talk about the date of that meeting, please?
Yes, I
Can you share the
believe
date?
it's January 6th. I'm going to double check that and make sure. But it's just our regular planning and zoning meeting, which is usually on the whatever that first Tuesday of the month is, in tandem with the Board of Commissioners meeting. And so we will have, I think, about 11 items on the agenda that night. So it will not be a quick meeting, but we do have another data center proposal. This one is over in the Thornton Rockhouse Road area on the eastern side of the county. So it's District 2. It's not in District 1. But again, shared that date, which I believe is January 6th. If that's not right, I will tell you in just a minute. So that in the context of that's really the last application I have pending at this time for a data center project in Douglas County.
Okay.
Okay, the next question is about the museum. There's a lot of controversy around that.
Okay.
I didn't know that it belonged to the county since it sits in the city area.
Got it. Okay.
So my question is, there's a lot on Facebook about the museum.
Okay.
And it seemed like no one was really getting an answer as to why they wanted it closed, what are the plans for that area, and I'm not sure why that wasn't communicated to the residents.
Okay, so let me make one correction. The county do not own the museum. We own the old courthouse. The museum, and I know I've got my colleague here, Dot Paget, who can probably speak more to that, though I don't know if you want to bring her a mic, because she probably want to have a conversation with this whole museum. So it wasn't about getting rid of the museum. It's more about how we improve upon the museum and the operation, the structure, the what we expect as a community when it comes to the museum. So I don't think any of my colleagues were against the museum or trying to, what I call, close the museum. We were just trying to get a better understanding because, and give Dot the mic so she can kind of have some conversation with me on this, because here's where we are with the museum. Right now, we've moved the museum conversation to my, which I requested this, moved it to my committee, Community Service Committee, to have some deeper conversations about the museum, because the museum is a 501c3 headed up by Suzanne Hudson, and the artifacts is in question. Should we still continue? This location is in question. The operation is in question. How do we expand on these artifacts? Kennesaw has come in and had some conversations about what we should or could do, but from my understanding, they never saw the information. I wasn't here when it was all done. I was on hiatus, and when I got back, they said, here's this whole thing about the museum. So there's a lot that's going on, but right now, the museum is at the committee level. We plan to meet, I want to say January 8th. We're going to have a meeting in January. Yeah, somewhere in January, there's going to be a meeting in January that's going to have a real deep discussion about the museum. We're looking at trying to have the conversation with the CAC and the museum to see how would that work. I've got another colleague here of mine, Amy, who's actually been having conversations about that. So I don't know if these guys may chime in, but right now that's where the committee, and this is where this is all about, and this is where we're going thus far. So Dot, if you would, please.
Well, thank you. And I want to congratulate Henry and his influence for getting all of these people down here on a busy Saturday morning.
Right before Christmas, yes.
I wish that the audience was more
that's okay.
to see this, Henry. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to thank you for asking and bringing up the question of the museum. There are about 3 things that I would like to tell you. First of all, the museum does not take taxpayer money. And that the Old Courthouse, Inc., when that first started, I was on that board. Suzanne Hudson is director. That building, which the Kennesaw thinks very, very important, that building was designed and it was designated to be torn down. It was going to be torn down. That building that's so important to everybody right now was going to be torn down. There was going to be a parking lot there in the city. And now, number one, number two, number three, is that the museum only has 1/3 of the building. I think I'm correct on that. Chad, can you help me with that? Chad's office is there and other offices are there. The thing that I do want to bring out is that I've lived here in Douglas County since 1941, so I really have a background in history, and I know a lot about the city and how it's developed. And I will tell you one thing. One of the things that the commissioners, and Henry was part of that, so you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. Hopefully we can get them moving over into our direction and knowing how important a museum is to a city. But the thing that is important is there are a lot of people that really do not understand the history and know the history of Douglas County like I do. And that's no fault of theirs, because they haven't lived as long as I have, and they haven't had the opportunity to see what's happening. Today I'm going to a funeral for a woman that's, I think she's 103 years old, Martha Page. And that's Sam Davis, who's a member of the council. I think it's his aunt or his great aunt or his great-great-great aunt, I don't know. But in the 1960s and the 1970s, Martha had a little store downtown. It was called the Pink Store. It was a thrift shop. And she ran this. She was a young black female. As a matter of fact, we always referred to Martha as Buster. She was just a very important person. Y'all, excuse me. That's probably Henry telling me I've talked enough. But Martha is very important. She was a black female in downtown Douglasville. It was male-dominated, white male-dominated. All right, Martha was running that store. She did it very successfully. The reason it was thrift shop, and people would come and buy things from the store. There's nothing in the museum that represents Martha's, and also that. But it's because the people in the museum cannot go into anyone's home and say, we want this. It is left up to the citizen to bring it into the museum. There's also another very important part of the history, and I'm talking about the council, the commissioner that said that the museum does not reflect the diversity of the county, and I will agree with that, and the museum director agrees with that. But you can't go into someone's home and you can't say, look, we want this or we want that. Those things that are put in there voluntarily. I have a very important piece of item in my home that's in there. But that is another thing. We should have something. And so I've spoken to members of her family, and I said, please, we need something from the time that she was in that little shop. We also needed something for Winston baseball team. And that was the Jess Davis, the Caldwells, and they had this was in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and there was a young black youth baseball team, and they traveled all around. And I asked someone, I said, don't you even have a banner? Do you have a program? Do you have something that should be put in the museum? They said, yes, I think they're over at the Hawthorne Center. They do have some of those items. So those are important, but the director of the museum, and if it had not been for Suzanne Hudson, that building would have been torn down. So there are a lot of things that need to be, and you all, thank you, you have actually given us a forum and given this county a forum, because we have a lot of people that should go up there and have not visited in the museum. There is a lunchbox collection up there, and I think that was mentioned. And do you know that the Smithsonian has a lunchbox collection. There's only 50 items, 50 items. We have 350 items that go back to 1915. How many of you know the name Hopalong Cassidy?
Oh, yes, oh, yes, oh, yes.
All right, Hopalong Cassidy is in our museum. The Smithsonian has a Hopalong Cassidy that they travel all over the country with. So this museum is not just some little spot up there in downtown Douglasville. This museum has a reputation that brings people in, and it's very, very important. We also now have, and we're hoping, Henry, when we come to your meeting, to let you know that we're working on some money-raising projects and those types of things. And also, we have some things some changes that will be made. So I want to thank you for bringing the question up, because I was sitting here thinking that I don't want to interfere with his district and the people that have problems in the district. And I know I've spoken over a lot of
You've
time,
done well,
which I
Ms.
often
Padgett.
do.
You've done well. You've done well.
Thank you very much.
I'll just add to that, though, so that we're clear, though. And I know Facebook has a lot of unique conversations there that talks about myself and others. Don't believe the hype. I think we feel is important, history is important. And we want to make sure we expound on our history. We want to make sure that we deliver that messaging when it comes to our history in Douglas County. Because there's a lot of history that's being missed. But we need to make sure that we tap into that. We need that diversity, as we stated earlier. So there's a lot that's going on with this whole museum. I wish we wouldn't take the approach of what we're not doing, or the negative approach. That part, I wish we wouldn't take that approach, and understand that I think is important. My biggest concern, or not biggest concern, but one of my concerns are kind of if we're spending funds, or if funding is going in that sourceful rim of the museum, how are they being spent? Because I think you would want to know where your tax dollars are being spent. If that's the case, then fine. If it's more on fundraising, now let's be clear. I'm not only talking about the money that potentially that they can get from the county, but remember the building not being used as it could be used. And these guys are there, Suzanne and others are there, not paying any rent, not paying. So those are the questions in the Q&A. I'm using you guys, not, I'm thinking about the board, are asking those questions. Because we're being charged with those questions as a board. Why should they, as a 501c3, be rent-free, get some type of funding source from the county, and not justifiably tell us where it is, where it's going, and how they're using it? I think that's a fair question. So we are not against it. It's just that we want to understand what that is, what it looks like, how we're going to do it, how we're going to move forward if we move forward. And that's why we're having these meetings, the ongoing meetings. And I think they're going really well, though. And Ms. Padgett was going to add to that.
Oh, yeah, there was one thing that was brought up a number of times, and that was the $500,000. That was money that was splashed, and it was designated. This was years and years ago. And the museum never, ever, that was brought up about 3 times during the times that we had the open meetings. And the museum never received that type of money. They've never received that kind of money at all.
Right.
And it was, thank you, Henry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to, because I've seen that written, I've seen it asked, and I wanted to be sure that we were clear on that the museum did not receive that type of money.
Right, and it's been written
but
that.
There is a thing, and you brought it up, and Amy, you're on that board of the CAC, and that is that there may be a collaboration.
Correct.
Could be. So we need to be sure that the museum site where it is right now at least has a life between now, because if you all remember, they said that they would have to vacate December 31st. So we are asking for an extension.
But Dr. Padgett.
And I'm sorry, I know that doesn't have to do with the
Ms.
problems that
Padgett,
you all have.
but we've actually went beyond that now. So meaning we're beyond them leaving as of December 31st. That's been negated to now that they're going month to month through my committee, and we're going to have these conversations to say that we are now trying to see what the CAC and or the museum would look like. Are we going to move forward with it? What the conditions and recommendations are that we'll make to the board. And if that works out, then we're good. If it doesn't, then we just got to understand that it just didn't work. So everything is on the table, by the way. So yes, Amy.
One, I want to say thank you for those community leaders that reached out to me and asked me to be a part of that conversation, because yes, I am also for the closure, but not for removing of history. I'm as a DEI specialist, is making sure that it's inclusive of everyone's history. And thank you for Ms. Padgett, who's been here, to be able to tell a lot of that. But it's making sure that it's inclusive of all. And I get we can't go into people's houses, but it is about what's welcomed, because many of us have walked in and said, hey, you know, how can we help? And it never was fully received. But I also want to just say, one of the other reasons why I believe I was asked is because of the emotional intelligence. A lot of people get very emotional behind these things, and rightfully so. But it really does come down to the business side of it, and where the accountability has to happen, just because we do need office space, right? We are paying for those additional funds. We're storing for our election equipment, things of that sort. Right. So yes, they may not have received $500,000, but when you think about the commercial real estate and what the cost is of renting those spaces, right? And we've been giving that away for the last 27 years, and utilities. I'm just wondering where I can submit my utility bills so I can get those paid, right? But in long story short, I was thankful that I got asked to be invited to help look with the analysis of it. We're not going to say or commit to we're signing a whole nother year or another 3 or 5 years. What we're saying is there has to be an action plan. Yes. So that way we know how to move forward with the museum. And I'm not sure the 1/3 of the space of the building, as much as it may be 1/3 type of company that's in the space, but the whole top level is the museum, and part of the bottom floor is the museum. And so it's how do we integrate those spaces to making sure that, one, the county can actually utilize the building, as well, if we continue on with the museum, that we're actually bringing people into the space to explore the space and actually better utilize it versus all the events and stuff outside. Because then, yes, it does come to a concern that I would have is if we're giving funds to the CAC, and I no longer sit on that board, I want to make sure that I'm very intentional with the type of efforts that we're doing in saving the arts, or, you know, doing things more for the community. And so that's where, you know, there's several of us in the room that now have been invited to be on that, and we will definitely be good stewards in looking at how we can maximize that space, but maximize the participation with the community coming out and being a part of that, and those rotation of exhibits so that people can see reflective of everything. And then the true story of Douglas County truly comes out and can be embraced by the community. So I love where it's going. Thank you for that opportunity to help elaborate. Thank you, Ms. Padgett, be able to, again, communicate what that history is, but it's about being encompassing of all and where our dollars are expensed properly.
Right.
So.
And thank you, Amy, for, you know, we have many ongoing conversations about what that could be, look like, and all that good stuff. But we got to get a plan. We got to get an action plan. We got to understand what it is, because I don't think you guys would allow, you wouldn't just spend money in your household any kind of way. You want to know exactly structure-wise where it's going, what you're doing, how it's being used, whether it's a free ride to the service station or it costs you, and what that cost is. So we just want to notify you as a citizen as to what this really will look like in the future. Does it fit within the realm of what we want to do? And if it costs us, it may cost us $500,000 to do what we really want to do, then at least we'll know what that looks like. And then we'll have to make that decision as a board. Do we want to move forward with something of that caliber? Because I agree that the Kennesaw State, what I read it's some good stuff there though. But I think it's a little on the higher end of, yeah, so it's a lot. But it's something that at least we should have the conversation though. That's all I'm asking. So don't believe all the hype on Facebook, because they talk about me like a hot dog. But it's okay, because I'm going to only do what's right, and I think that's right for Douglas County. not whether it's right for one sector of folk or Democrats or Republican. That part doesn't matter to me. It made more sense to me to go and try and have another conversation with my colleagues and others about this particular museum. Because as Amy stood up and stated, she said, I was against it. Let's go, move. Yeah, but she's at least humbled herself to come and have a conversation about it, to say what it possibly could be, and that doesn't mean it's going to work though. So don't get the myth that we're going to work this out and we're going to find ourselves on the yellow brick road. Maybe, maybe not though. But thank you for the question though.